This simple tweak can instantly improve your Nightscapes. And no, it's not just upgrading your gear or your editing software, it's improving the part of your photo that actually makes people stop scrolling. So in this video, I will show you what that tweak is, why it's so important, and how to start implementing it right away. To start, let's analyze these two Nightscapes. Spot the difference. For this one, I was in a rush and I was desperate to find a spot to shoot the comet from. I had no idea if I would get another clear night after this one, and I really wanted to get the comet. I didn't know the location that well and I had no idea where I would take the image from. So I went for the best composition I could find at the time and ended up with this. And so the image looks like shit, at least for my standards. If you're for some reason thinking maybe he didn't know what he was doing back then, here is another picture I took of the comet that was so good it even won a competition. Now for picture 2, I visited the location during the day a month before and found the composition I wanted to shoot. I patiently waited for a clear night, and when I got the chance, I went there and took the shot. I already knew the exact composition I would take and basically optimized for one key element in the picture. So what's that key element I focused on? You are probably thinking it's a foreground, right? But it goes a lot deeper, and there are actually 2 levels in this. Let me explain. Think of capturing amazing nightscapes as dressing up for a wedding. The sky is a tuxedo jacket and the foreground is the pants and shoes and whatever. You wouldn't want to wear a tuxedo on top and sweatpants below, right? This is how the photo looks when the foreground is an afterthought in the image. This is level 1, wearing a suit for the whole body, or in our case, not treating the foreground as an afterthought. But how do you go to the next level? You wouldn't want to wear a jacket and pants that don't match, right? You want perfect harmony to have the best look. So this is level 2, managing to create harmony in your image by matching the whole outfit. But how do you do that? Here's how. You need a simple shift in mindset. The purpose of the Nightscape is not to show the stars. That would be a wide field image of just the sky. The actual purpose of a Nightscape is to showcase the connection between the stars and the earth, the universe and humanity. That's how you create an image that actually moves people. And having this connection in mind will 100% improve your images. But what are some specific practical steps you can take to achieve this connection easily and take your images to the next level? Step 1, you arrive at the location early and you even leave the camera in the back for now. You walk around with just a phone to see where the Milky Way will be and at what time. After you get the idea of the position of the Milky Way, you want to search for interesting foreground subjects to include in the image. Luckily, I have put a simple system together for you to follow to do that. So step 2, plan the composition while keeping the system solid in mind. I will get to each letter in a bit. It's a framework I have developed to help you create the connection in your images that sparks the right emotions. Let's break down each letter real quick with example images, and you might want to note this down. Okay, starting with this. Take a look at these images. What do they have in common? They are all incredibly simple. There aren't many things in the composition fighting for attention, and that makes it a lot easier for our brain to create the connection between the sky and the foreground. Now for the O. Take a look at these 2 images. What works with both of them is that there is an element from the foreground that overlaps with the sky. I chose these 2 as examples because the overlap is completely different. The first is a tree branch that takes the spotlight in the image and reaches a good height in the image. And the second is just a small hill that complements the arch. So anything that overlaps between the foreground and the sky serves a purpose and creates that connection. And bonus tip here, star reflections can have the same effect. Just think of the sky overlapping with the foreground instead of the foreground with the sky. I just didn't have any good star reflection images to show. Maybe I should really work on that. Now let's go over the next connection technique, the L. Take a look at these images. You could have probably guessed it, but I will spoil it for you and tell you exactly why they work. They all have leading lines connecting the foreground with the sky. Some are more obvious and some are more subtle, but every one of these images has a leading line. And leading lines are arguably the easiest way to compose an image because they are so strong that you can create the whole composition around them. Now for the I, and here is where things get interesting. Take a look at these images. And yeah, I'm repeating myself with some of these images because I combine techniques, but more on that later. Anyway, because it takes a trained eye to see this, I will just give it to you. The common thing between these images is the illumination of the foreground, either by me physically holding a light in the frame, subtle illumination from the side, or because I capture the foreground during blue hour. There are more ways to do it, for example by taking the image of the foreground while there is a full moon on the sky, but I found these three work the best. And illumination creates a connection because it gives the foreground that 3D effect. Anyway, finally, then D. Now take a look at these images. I promise it's the last time I say this phrase in the video. What they all have in common is depth. That's what the D stands for, you dirty-minded. Anyway, there are a lot of ways to achieve depth, but the general guideline is to use a sequence of objects of the same size that get smaller in frame, then deeper you get into the image. And because it might be a bit difficult to understand, let me point out the effect on each of the three images I showed. Here, it's the bushes that get smaller the deeper you get into the foreground. Also, the fact that the bushes here are so large compared to the human, me, makes the brain think the image as 3D. So it doesn't have to be always the same objects that get smaller as you get deeper into the frame, but it has to be objects of known size for this to work. Like this image, for example, where it's the mountains, then distance, compared to the stuff close to the camera. Because our brain knows that a mountain is in fact larger than a person and a bush, it creates the effect. But for this image here, it's the stones next to the water. And this acts as both the depth effect and a leading line. And in general, any leading line will also give the effect of depth. Here is the whole solid system on screen if you want to write it down or screenshot it. An important detail here is that you can and should combine different elements from the system. But don't feel like you have to use every element in every image. Just pick the parts that fit what you are working with and skip the rest. And finally, step 3, you go ahead and set up the gear to capture the photos, if you needed to hear that. Now, I have shown you how to create that connection between the foreground and the sky. But do you know how to capture amazing detail in your Milky Way shots in the first place? Watch this video next to find out.